Hi, Calvary kids and grown-ups. Welcome to another lesson. I'm so glad that you guys could join us. I feel like I say that every week, maybe. But this is an exciting Sunday. I'm here at the church. It's Sunday morning before our kids come in, and I was super excited to film this actually on Sunday because it is our Fan Sunday. So we are here at the church actually, encouraging people to wear their fan gear to church. It's super awesome. The Browns are in the playoffs, which hasn't happened probably as long as, well, definitely not in the time span of you students being alive. So this is a cool day. And it's always fun to just find things that unite us, right? Like the love of sports or, whatever sport that is, or the love of activities and playing together. So I love Fan Sunday. I am wearing a New York Giants jersey because they are my favorite football team. My house was very divided growing up. My mom's from New York. And so half my family would celebrate and watch the Browns every Sunday. And then me and my mom would watch the Giants every Sunday. Pretty cool. I got to see 2 Super Bowls because the Giants have been in the Super Bowl twice since I've been alive, which is pretty cool. I hope that that's the case for the Browns. If not this year, then, in the coming future, because how fun would that be? But it's an exciting Sunday here at church, and I just wanted you guys to feel like you're part of it. So if you need to pause this video and go throw on some fan gear, I'd say do that. Even if the fan gear is Eagles or Cowboys, I'll let it slide as a Giants fan just because I want us to all be part of something. So if you need to do that, pause it now. And then, So today we are actually going to touch on 2 things. One, we're going to talk about a story that has to do with prayer because we're coming off of a week of prayer. Where we had some really awesome prayer time Monday night and Wednesday night. I was here for both of those. I wasn't here Friday night, but I did hear that was really good prayer too. And it was a great time just to kind of remind ourselves, what should our goals be for the new year? How do we want to improve ourselves? What do we want to do better? And one of the things I want to do better is prayer. I want it to be more regular. I want it to be more purposeful. I know some of you may pray before you go to bed at night, or you may pray before you eat your food, and that's awesome. My goal is to just add more than those times, right? My goal is to add a couple times throughout the day. Maybe before I go to play with my toys, I want to pray and thank God for those things. And before I go hang out with my friends, or before I, do schoolwork or homework, I want to pray and thank God that I have the ability to do that. So that's just kind of my goal, is making prayer more frequent. So today's lesson is going to be about Daniel. Now, Daniel and the lion's den is kind of a familiar, popular story, but I don't know if you guys have really heard it much. I don't think that since I've been teaching here at Calvary, we've talked about it. So I was excited to talk about this today. Basically, Daniel, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, I think I'm pronouncing those right. I could be wrong. I'm trying to remember from my VeggieTale pronunciation. But they were all taken to King Nebuchadnezzar and his kingdom. And, it starts with those other 3 kind of standing up to King Nebuchadnezzar and telling him hey, we're not going to bow down to you because we only bow down to God, and God does some miraculous things and some miracles, and they get thrown in the furnace, but they don't burn. And, the angel of the Lord shows up and they survive. And that's a super cool story. And then after that, when we pick it up again with Daniel, we see that there is another king, and he has a whole bunch of advisors, and he chose 100 and something, and Daniel's part of it. And the other advisors, a few of them, were jealous of Daniel. They didn't really like that he was there. He wasn't really one of them, he's not from their land. And so they wanted him gone. But Daniel was an upstanding guy. So if you think of the most wholesome, awesome, never does wrong, always thinks of others, really is just a stand-up person, that was Daniel. They couldn't find anything to kick him out of the kingdom for, kick him out of the council of the king. They couldn't find anything wrong with him. But they knew that the only thing that would stand in between him and complete loyalty to the king is if there was ever anything that happened that had to do with God. If he was ever asked to do something that was against, the Bible and God's law, then they were okay, he probably wouldn't do that. He would probably, it would be a barrier. So they decided to go to the king, and they were hey, Daniel loves to pray. So we're going to tell the king that for the next 30 days, no one should pray to any god or anyone else unless they're praying to the king. So they go to the king and they're like, hey, you're worthy of this. No one should pray to anyone else. It should be all about you for the next month. And the king, of course, is like, awesome. That sounds great. People praying to me, not thinking about other people. I love it. And so they enact that decree. And what do you think you would do in that situation? So Daniel hears about this and understands that if you pray to anyone else, you are going to face some consequences. I would be a little bit scared. I mean, I'm not totally sure what I would do in this situation. I think I would I know I would still pray to God, for sure. But Daniel does something pretty bold. And I like to think that because of this story, because of the example that Daniel has set, that I would try to do the same thing. And so Daniel does something pretty bold. And instead of going in his house and closing all the doors, shutting all the windows, putting up soundproof padding or hiding away in a closet and praying, Daniel goes home, he opens all the windows, and he gets on his knees and he prays to God. And if I'm correct, it says that he actually does this multiple times a day. It's not like just one and done. I mean, he's praying like normal, as loud as for everyone to hear, just like he would normally. Just like how, on Sunday mornings we pray at the end of our lesson or we pray before a snack, just normal, loud, in front of people, we're not whispering it. He did the same thing. He was just normal, praying on his knees with all the windows open so that people knew nothing was going to get in between him and his fellowship with God, his time with God, his prayer with God, because that's what prayer is. I mean, prayer can be a lot of cool things, but really it's time specifically devoted to God. And, when I was younger, I used to think that prayer had to be very specific, and it had to be in a church and on a certain time of the week, on Sundays or Wednesday nights, that prayer was very specific and I had to use the right set of words or God wouldn't hear me right. But as I got older, I began to realize, prayer is so much more than that. It's important to pray on Sundays and Wednesday nights, but it doesn't stop there. And prayer can happen all the time. Prayer can happen while you're washing dishes or unloading the dishwasher. Prayer can happen while you're walking the dog or while you're cleaning your room or, while you're just sitting watching the snow fall. I mean, prayer can be so casual, and I think sometimes we view prayer as pretty formal, like the difference between a suit and tie or a fancy dress and a football jersey, right? Those are two very different things. I would not wear this to a wedding. Unless the theme was fan. That would be pretty cool, fan wedding. But I wouldn't wear this to a wedding, just like how I wouldn't wear a fancy ball gown to a football game. Sometimes we think prayer has to be formal and it can't get into any of our casual life. It can't get into any of the times at school or the time at home or doing the chores. We think that prayer has to be stuck in the church and nowhere else. But prayer is really just a conversation with God. And so that's what Daniel did. He was not afraid. He was bold. He said, I'm going to pray to God and people are going to know because nothing's going to get in between me and my prayer time with God. And so even though that was a really cool display, he was breaking the law. And so those advisors that didn't want Daniel there, they wanted him gone. They went to the king. They said, look, he's breaking your law. He's praying to God. He's doing it publicly. You need to handle this. He's breaking the rules. So the king, who liked Daniel, the king and Daniel weren't enemies, but he did have to follow through on his word. And so the solution was they threw Daniel in the lion's den. And so this is probably, I'm trying to give you some visual, maybe a cave or a well, an enclosure that you would throw Daniel in, and then they rolled a stone over it. And they're like, okay, you got to stay in the lion's den. And he was there overnight. And when they rolled away the stone the next morning, they were not expecting to find Daniel alive because lions get hungry and they don't know, it's just, to them, it's just more food. They don't know. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a lion. I saw a tiger really, really up close when I was in Vietnam on a trip with my school. We went to a zoo and there was a tiger, and I'd seen it so close, and like it was crazy how big the jaw is, and like I think that kind of parallels a lion. Like the jaw's huge, it's big and scary. And so they rolled away the stone, expecting having to, then have to bury Daniel because he wouldn't be alive. But they found Daniel alive. And they were like, whoa, how did this happen? And Daniel was like, well, an angel of the Lord came and he shut the mouths of the lions because God found me innocent in his sight. Because God looked at what Daniel did and he saw that he didn't break any of God's laws. He prayed with God. He prayed to God. That's what you're supposed to do. That helps you build your relationship with God. And so Daniel didn't do anything wrong. And so God was not about to let him get punished for that. But I think the cool thing about the story with Daniel is that Daniel didn't know that'd be the outcome. Maybe he trusted God and believed that God would save him somehow. But we can't see into the future, right? Like we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So we don't really know. I mean, we can have faith and we can trust. But I'm sure Daniel in that lion's den was maybe a little worried. But he knew that God was on his side and he was going to pray to God no matter what. And it's just a really cool story. There's some more to the story, but I don't want to take up too much time on it. If you're interested, I would encourage you guys to read the story of Daniel. And you could even start before the lion's den. You could start with him and his friends Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. Maybe you guys could find a better correct pronunciation. But you could, start at the beginning of Daniel and work your way through. God does some crazy, awesome things in the story of Daniel that are just wild. So it's a really cool story, and I would encourage you guys to read it. Next week, we are going to start back up on our Bible engagement plan. So Bible engagement project is a curriculum, basically, that we will be using throughout the church. So the youth are going to be learning the same thing that we learn on Sundays. They'll learn on Wednesday nights. And the adults, when there's 2 small groups starting, one in person on Wednesday nights and one over video on Monday nights. And they're going to be going off of the same thing too. We're all going to be learning the same story together, even the preschoolers. That starts back up next week. And I think it's going to be really cool. I really love the Bible engagement plan. I didn't share that video today because it actually starts today. But we had already done this first video. It was about the Exodus. Moses, went and he freed the Israelites from Egypt, and it was all about, them escaping and God protecting them, and we'd already done a video on that, so I didn't really want to spend time having you guys watch the same video of me talking, but if you want to watch it, I think it may still be on the channel. I'm super excited about Bible Engagement Project, and there's devotionals there for families and students. So if you want to do something as a family, they're really awesome. They're not super long, and it's a great way to just kind of focus in on what God is, speaking to us throughout the week. So thank you guys for watching. My goal was to make this a short video, and it still ended up being almost 15 minutes, so I'm so sorry. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and if you're watching this on Sunday, I hope the Browns do great, and Ohio State does great on Monday, and, regardless, it's just a fun time this morning here at church, so I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and I will see you guys next week.